When my daughter was between the ages of 3 and 8, she spoke of people with no face or figures of shadows. She would often wake me up, telling me there was a man or figure standing in her closet. The most frightening of stories. She woke me up to ask me if I heard the screams. She said there was a shadow who stood at her doorway and screamed at her, and then flew into my room and screamed at my wife and I. At this point, she was in uncontrollable sobs, unable to understand why I did not wake up. She is now 11, and the encounters have stopped. She refuses to speak of whatever was going on with her, and makes light of my questions. Typing this is stirring up emotions. I grew up in an old brownstone house in Brooklyn, New York. It was a 2-story with a large squeaky staircase and a creepy basement. The house had a lot of spiritual activity. One day in particular is burned into my memory and still gets me to this day. It was in the middle of the afternoon. Sun was shining. I was running around the house misbehaving with my little brother. I was 8. He was 5. We were playing spies, and I was making my way up the stairs. As I'm walking up the stairs, I can see the entrance to my bedroom. As I was looking into my room, a tall shadow being stepped into the doorway, looked straight at me, and then went back into my bedroom. It was a dark shadow in the shape of a human, standing upright and walking. It had a wavy quality, like I was looking at a heat wave. I was so terrified I tried to scream, but my voice didn't even come out. I ran downstairs as fast as I could to the living room where the rest of my family was. I was crying hysterically, explaining to my mother exactly what I saw. She had me say some prayers and tried to assure me it was gone. I did not want to go back into my own room. I had difficulties falling asleep. I had nightmares about it. The entire experience lasted a few seconds, but I replayed it in my head hundreds of times. When I got older, and the internet became a thing, I looked up shadow beings. It felt good learning about other people's experiences. I finally felt like I was not alone. I never talk about this incident, but I'll never forget. I rarely am one to make a big deal of things, let alone tell anyone weird, unbelievable stuff. But these are some experiences that I recently had in a house we lived in for a little under a year. We moved into this house in October of 2001. The first 2 or 3 months, all was fine. Then on or around the first of the year, 2002, my 4-year-old, then 3, would wake up in the middle of the night, absolutely terrified, saying there was a monster in her room. Now, of course, I brushed this off as a childhood nightmare, but then in late February, I started waking up in the middle of the night with a feeling of someone staring at me. No, my daughter stopped getting up. Upon looking in the general vicinity of where this feeling was coming from, I would briefly see a shadowy black and gray apparition that would be gone as soon as my eyes focused. This would give me the chills. Then I would go back to sleep. This occurred 2 to 3 times a week for months. The same nightly scenario. I'd wake up, focus, and gone. Or I'd wake up and see it, and turn the TV, and it was gone. Only once did my fiancée actually see the apparition too. I think it was in June. She woke me up in the middle of the night and said she saw a faceless child standing next to her, about 3 feet from her side of the bed. As soon as she looked at the face, it was gone. I then got up, telling her it must have been my daughter. I went to her room, and she is fast asleep. Other than this, she never saw anything again. The most frightful experience with it was in late August when I woke out of a dead sleep again and did the routine, except this time, it didn't disappear. It stayed floating in the corner of the room. It was a swirling black cloud with some gray in it, probably 4 to 5 feet long and 1.5 to 2 feet wide. I will honestly say, I have not felt that kind of fear ever in my life. It felt like there was pure evil in the room. I couldn't move, but I was able to nudge my fiancé and say, "Look, there it is. That thing I keep seeing." With that, she rolled over, and only after she turned over did it disappear. We moved out in late September, and I have not been woken up since. I did ask a few people the history of this house, but to no one's recollection did anyone ever meet their fate on that ground. Like I said, normally, I wouldn't take the time to write this. However, I feel as though I needed to get it off my chest. My name is Gabriella and I live in Munich, Germany. Since I moved to a small village, I've experienced this phenomenon. I just found out about it. Or that it even has a name, and it is a common one recently. I used to think I was crazy, and some days, I just couldn't sleep, like if something was bugging me. Like an annoying mosquito, but different. I will feel a cold wind. It's very cold at night here. And also feel some kind of pressure or paralyzed sensation. I'll just shake and wake up, and I will see directly across the room that figure. It did sometimes stink, sometimes not. There might be months, even 7 or 8, in which nothing happens, and then it comes back again. It doesn't seem to follow a pattern. It can happen during the day even. That is more rare. I also feel, or hear, like whispers in my ear. I saw what I would best describe as a shadow person when I was around 8 years old. Me and a friend always had these Star Wars battles with action figures in his basement. We would split and set up our bases, basically just hiding figures all over the place. One day, while I was in the main room hiding one of my figures in preparation for battle, I looked over to where the room turned a corner and noticed what appeared to be a dark, hazy silhouette of a man just standing around the corner looking at me. There were no features, just a human shape. Not sure what I was looking at. I assumed it was my friend messing with me, so I asked him what he was doing. From behind me I hear, "Who are you talking to?" I jumped around, startled to see my friend behind me in the back room sitting on the floor. I quickly looked back to where the figure was, but nothing was there. Freaked out, I run into the room with my friend and hide. It was probably the scariest thing I've ever experienced, and even writing this is making the hair stand up on the back of my neck and my eyes tear up, remembering what that thing looked like. I'm still friends with that kid to this day, and have stayed in that house countless times since, with no other incidents. However, I recently told his much older brother. He then told me about his late night experiences, with doors opening on their own, scratching on the walls, and strange shadows passing by. When I was younger, I lived in a ranch-style home with my mom and grandma. My mom and I had to choose our rooms in the basement. Hers is in the back corner bedroom of the basement, and mine in a sectioned-off area of the main living room. Her bedroom was connected both to her bathroom and the main living area, the bathroom door being in her room, and the door leading to the living area being kitty corner, with a door that led to her bathroom from the main living area. One night in particular, I remember playing with my Legos. I was probably 9 or 10, when I happened to look up at my mom's bedroom door. As I looked through that door, it became more and more apparent that there was something there. It had no facial features, and was nothing more than the silhouette of a small person with really swooshy hair. After about a minute of looking at the shadow, it dashed into the bedroom via the door directly connecting the bathroom and bedroom. In disbelief, I continued playing with my Legos when I felt something staring at me. As I looked up, I couldn't believe my eyes. The same shadow was now standing directly in the bathroom doorway. Now I know it had no face, much less eyes, but it was staring, watching, perhaps even waiting. It almost immediately sprinted into my mom's room, at which point I sprinted up the stairs, tears of fear running down my face. After that incident, I could never be alone in that basement at night, and my bedroom was moved to one of the spare rooms upstairs. I wish I could say that was the last of my experiences, but alas, it is not. This same shadow person followed me to several different houses, including the one I'm at now. My only experience with anything like this was after a particularly vivid dream, in which someone was whispering what I can only describe as secrets into my ear. When I awoke, I looked directly across my bedroom and saw a shadow darker than darkness, and it turned and looked at me. When I called out, it then turned and ran straight into the wall. And I'm sure I saw kind of a splash of darkness, like dissipating smoke, as it disappeared. I absolutely believe that whatever it was had been whispering into my ear before I woke up, and that I had awakened before he thought I would. I also just feel I know it was a he. My true story, my wife and I will swear to it in front of any person on the planet. We lived in a fairly new double-wide mobile home that sits on a spot that has never had any house of any kind. and is at least a half a mile from where any house has ever sat. So you would not think that it would be a likely location for a haunting. However, my wife and I on occasion have seen some rather strange things here, the most startling of which I relate here. One night after an uneventful day, my wife and I retired for the night. We sleep in a large waterbed. Some time had passed, and I was unable to sleep. My wife's breathing had become regular and reached a point at which I assumed that she was asleep. It must be also known that we leave a light on in the bathroom farthest from our bedroom, because we normally have children in the house. However, that night, there was no one in the house except my wife and I. But the light was on as usual, casting a glow through our open bedroom door, which weakly lit it. While laying there, unable to sleep, I became aware of a presence. And suddenly, and silently, a figure moved through our bedroom door and proceeded parallel to our bed. Then, rounding the corner of our bed, took up a fixed position at the foot of our bed. I was aware that this entity was conscious of us and was intently watching us as we lay there. The entity can best be described as a something that had the appearance of black smoke or a shadow. However, it was more material than either of these, but less material than a real person. The most odd thing about this is my lack of fear. Although I was acutely aware of this being, and the fact it was not of this earth as we perceive it, it did not seem to arouse any fear response in me. I would say it aroused a feeling that would fit somewhere between creepy, odd, and curiosity, especially considering the fact that it was aware of me as I was aware of it. After some time, I almost convinced myself that I was imagining it. But then I became aware of the fact that my wife was no longer breathing like she was asleep, but breathing almost silently. I then said, "Honey, are you awake?" To which she answered yes. Then I said, "Do you see anything?" Expecting her reply to be, "What do you mean?" But much to my surprise, she said, "You mean that thing standing at the foot of the bed?" At this time, I did become somewhat nervous. We laid there for about 10 minutes, and then it was gone. It, just over a period of about 10 seconds, became less solid, and our perception of its presence became weaker until it just wasn't there anymore. Then it was as if it had never been there. Nothing like this had happened since, and the only evidence it ever existed is in my wife's and my memories of it. Hey everyone, Dismal Hero here, and I'd like to thank you for checking out the video. Please subscribe if you haven't already, like and share the video if you enjoyed it. I'm always looking for new and exciting stories, so if you have a scary encounter that has happened to you, please email it to me in the link in my description. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you back here again next time.